Good evening, my friends. This is Paul, and I am an ISTJ who is here to talk about ISTJ fears. So before I get started, for those of you that have been watching my videos for a long time, you know that my YouTube channel was originally intended to be talking about mostly Catholicism and video games. But then a lot of you subscribed or keep watching because of my Myers-Briggs content. So I figured, well, alright, I'll do a little bit of a compromise for the viewers. What I'm going to do is I'm going to start a little sub-series called ISTJ Info Dump. The inspiration for that name was when I was talking to some of the ISTJs on Facebook, and they were talking about ENFJs, how they do what we call emotional vomiting, where they kind of just like spill out whatever they're feeling, be it happy, angry, somewhere in between. They're just going to say it without a filter. And I was like, why do they do that? And so another guy responded, well, we ISTJs do that too. It's called info dumping. We love telling people facts. We love telling people stuff that is objectively true. And I said, you know what? That's actually really true. I never really thought about it like that. So I'm going to be talking about ISTJs until someone tells me otherwise, because to my knowledge, I'm the only ISTJ on YouTube that actually talks about Myers-Briggs. Who knew? For a type all about facts, you'd think more of them would want to spill the facts. So with that, I'm going to start by talking about 10 fears and concerns of the ISTJ, because believe it or not, we are secretly very emotional beings. We just often push them to the side, suppress them, or don't want to fully express them because we have this general concern that people are either going to misread them, not take us seriously, or think we're stupid. Or all of the above. So usually these kind of fears are something that's going to be spoken by if someone is like a loved one. Usually you have to really build up an ISTJ's trust for them to open up. Thankfully, I've matured. And so I'm going to be talking about 10 things that an ISTJ fears. Some of these are a little bit more on the concern side, like how to get an ISTJ agitated, but for the most part, these are things that are going to terrify an ISTJ in their tracks. And of course, there's going to be exceptions, because we're a dichotomy. There's a lot of different ISTJs out there. We have personalities and personality types, so not all of these may apply to all of them. But I'd like to think a vast majority of ISTJs share these sentiments. So without further ado, in no particular order, number 1 is abandonment. ISTJs may be introverts, and they like their alone time, and they especially like being in areas where they're either alone or in very small company. However, one thing an ISTJ gets really paranoid about is if they have no one. ISTJs hate being in absolute isolation. Being a hermit would probably be really appalling. I know there's a lot of ISTJs that say that they'd like it, but I think they're just deluding themselves. Because being that out of touch with society, not the most practical of things to do. A lot of ISTJs, when they make a commitment to like or love someone, I've often compared it to a tick. Like, they're going to bite on and never let go. And if someone tries to pry them off, they'll still try everything in their power to bring it back. So if someone, say, ditches them or is disloyal or dishonest, that's going to break an ISTJ's heart. That's why a lot of times they hold off from socializing, because they don't want to have to deal with the possibility of loss. Because it's been said that the ISTJ is the most loyal of all the Myers-Briggs types, so much that the other types can't even fathom it. So as a result, that's why a lot of ISTJs would put this pretty darn high up on the list. Myself included, I am very much paranoid about abandonment. So hopefully, if one of you watching this is like a super close friend of mine, I'm going to remember you until the end of time, so watch it. This is actually kind of related, but the next one I had on my list is the loss of a loved one. ISTJs really, really, really put a lot of effort and focus into their relationships. Usually, if they're the not as social type, they can be very, very family oriented and will bend over backwards to provide for the needs of their family, especially if they're a father or a mother. And so when one of those people that they love dies, it's almost like a part of them dying in return, because to them, they get a lot of enjoyment out of making sure people's needs are met. So that sort of like makes them feeling like their usefulness is going away, or on an alternate train of thought, they, if they're not a Christian, they might be like, ah, where are they? What's going on? What are they feeling? Because, when you're under stress, the extroverted intuition starts panicking about all these horrible possibilities. But this doesn't just apply to death. This can also apply to a loved one moving out of state and never talking to them again. Or in my particular case, I know of a friend of mine who went into the convent. And I'm not opposed to her being in the convent in principle. But the fact that her convent strictly prohibited for 4 years straight any contact with someone that either wasn't married or wasn't a woman, not even a letter could be sent to her. That was hurtful. And if I ever get around to publishing my song, The Knife of Fire, on YouTube, it was written for her. Because, that was a stinger. Especially if we never end up talking again. Number 8. I swear, I am not intending this to be a pattern. It's just sort of happening as I talk about it. Number 8, or 3, depending on how you look at it, is terminal illness. ISTJs really like to take care of themselves. You may have noticed that the average ISTJ is meticulously aware of what they're wearing, what they look like, etc. Me, I'm a different kind of breed of ISTJ. Like, I do care about what I look like a lot, but not in the same way that the average ISTJ is, because I was homeschooled. So peer pressure doesn't get to me as much. For me, it's more of preserving an identity that I feel comfortable with. And if I change that identity, I fear that people are going to think that I've changed when I haven't, or that I'm going through a rebellious phase when I haven't. I like consistency. I don't like things to change that much. So with terminal illness, that throws the ISTJ out of whack, because then they're forced to abandon this routine that gives them so much comfort. And like I said at the previous point, especially if they're not a Christian, they're going to be panicking about what the heck is going to happen to them, and is it going to hurt to die? Especially because some ISTJs that have really developed their feeling might wonder what their loved one is going to do after they're gone, because a lot of ISTJs believe that they are very dependable and like you can go to them for anything. So it's like, who else is loyal and hardworking enough to be able to get the job done if they need to? The next one is being out of shape. ISTJs, like I said, they meticulously take care of themselves down to the finest detail. Typically, they're not nearly as organized of a mess as my room is. So when an ISTJ is feeling sick or out of sorts, it's really stressful to them, because they are the type of person that once they make a plan, they stick to it. And to an ISTJ, it makes them strangely paranoid when they're even a minute late to work, or if they have to call something off at the last minute. So a lot of times you'll see ISTJs, and some other TJ types are like this too, but especially in the ISTJ, you might find them, say, hobbling up the stairs to a youth group meeting, or bringing a box of tissues with them to work, or something to compensate for their sickness. Or you might see them get on this rigorous training program. And it's not because of the usual reasons that most people like go to the gym or stay fit, because they want to look attractive or appeal to the opposite sex. ISTJs usually aren't really thinking like that. For them, it's more so of, I got to be in control of myself, and I got to make sure that I'm disciplined, and I got to make sure that I am not going to yield to temptation. So that's why a lot of ISTJs are good at knowing their boundaries. Like, a lot of them aren't going to get into addictions, and if they do, they usually do a pretty good job of maintaining a steady way of getting out of it because they don't want to lose control. So likely an ISTJ is not going to get drunk. They're not going to gamble because that's too much risk taking. And inferior intuition makes us not want to risk take. Next up, and this one might be a shock to any of you that are feeling types, but ISTJs don't like conflict. Dominant introverted sensing is a comfort function. Basically, when the ISTJ has experienced something that they enjoy, they want to preserve it. And so conflict means that there's a break in the establishment. ISTJs, because they're dominant perceivers, even though they have a J at the end, their dominant function is a perceiving one, they're not going to want to get into a debate with someone just for the sake of yelling or because they're triggered. ISTJs typically have a very long fuse, and it takes a lot to get them to really go all out and have a temper. So for them, they like to resolve things peacefully because then they can get back to being comfortable. They also sometimes have unrealistic, rigid expectations that everyone follow the book as it is. So if someone is arguing against authority or someone is going against these morals or the old ways, ISTJs can become very harsh and outspoken. And they might say how dare you, that's a disgrace to your race, or ugh, what a horrible example you're setting, how dare you make a mockery of our society. Usually that's more the ESTJs that say that, but watch out, an ISTJ that's developed their value system is not going to pull any punches. Although they are at least going to be more tactful about it than an ESTJ. But I'll save that for another video, how we handle anger differently. Next up, and this is a particularly notorious fear of mine, is spontaneous travel. ISTJs generally don't like seeking out novel experiences. Unlike our ESTP brethren that love seeking out the thrill of the unknown, ISTJs are likely to be okay with staying the same for years on end, if not their entire life. My grandpa, who may have been INTJ, whatever, close enough, he had a bowl of Cheerios every day for his entire life. And a lot of people may say that ISTJs are boring as a result of it. But at the very least, you know that they're not going to pull a surprise on you. If they do, they have to have really developed intuition. It took me years before I was willing to get out of some of my ruts. And I'm sure for the average ISTJ it takes even longer. So when, say, a significant other or a friend says, hey, you want to go on a camping trip with me? Let's go tomorrow. The ISTJ is going to be like, okay, what hotel are we staying in? Where's the Google images? How's the car space going to look? What's the trunk going to look like? Do we have enough shaving cream? Do we have enough food? Do we have enough water? And that's just a lot of unnecessary stress. And once they start thinking that much about it, they'll say, well, what's even the point? Is this a business trip? Is it because we have to evacuate for health reasons? Is it because the taxes on the house are being bad? And when the person says, no, I just want to have fun and go out, they'll be like, why can't we have fun and just stay here? This might be a bit of a turnoff to anyone who's looking to date an ISTJ, but they're gonna be the type of person that will take you to the same place for every date and probably wear the same clothes. So you might have to really either be patient or work with the ISTJ to get them to say, no. We're going to walk down this way. We're not going to take this path to the park. I know whenever my best friend comes over, we always take the exact same route to the park whenever we go for a walk, every single time. And I think sometimes he tries to gradually nudge me to get me to explore the neighborhood a little bit more. Next up, and this one is one of the main reasons why I fell into a deep depression, is feeling useless. ISTJs want to think that they are the ultimate dependable partner, be it a work partner, be it a spouse, a brother, a sister, you name it. ISTJs want to be that person that you say, wow, I need you over here, and they'll be like, coming. Now, it's not to say ISTJs can do everything. Obviously, we have our specialities, and we're not going to claim to be like, I can fix this even though I have no idea how to be an architect. But in a field that they specialize in, They want to think that they know everything, that they've got it. So when I am told that my attempts are terrible, or I don't work hard enough, or I'm like I'm doing my job to the best of my ability, and my boss says you're not doing it good enough, that really hurts an ISTJ, because they put a tremendous amount of effort into what they believe is their duty. So when someone says they're not working hard enough, that's pretty much equivalent to saying I hate you to an ISTJ. In fact, I'd say they actually take an actual I hate you better than you're useless. So for future references, if an ISTJ ever gets to the point where they don't know how to do something, don't resort to berating them for it. Be willing to give them instructions. For me, usually I have to ask a lot of questions to clarify, like, what did you mean by that? Or, am I understanding you correctly? Again, lack of intuition. I'll argue why it's better to have lack of intuition versus lack of sensing later, but suffice to say that there's a lot of complaints against us for that inferior function, that there's just as many things we could say about inferior sensing. Next up is our own harsh brains. Now, usually it's the ESTJs that are the ones that are going to go out of their way to insult someone, or at least they're going to try to justify it as reasonable criticism. ISTJs do that too, but typically they hold back more, or they save it for when they're around a close friend, or if they're feeling like it's a terrible injustice. They're the ones that are going to speak out if their Subway is not exactly how they ordered. They'll say, I paid $7.59 for this, and this sandwich isn't worth a dime. They're being honest. They're not exaggerating. And if they do exaggerate, it's probably because they're trying to develop their feelings side a bit more. But as harsh as ISTJs can be to the outside world, they're just as harsh on themselves. There are days when if an ISTJ does end up failing at something, they will beat them up so much that they'll actually give themselves headaches. How should I know? I've been there. When I try to go beyond my abilities, or I try to work hard, I end up just completely losing it and fearing my own criteria. So that's why a lot of ISTJs have a hard time saying no when someone asks them to do something. Going back to the previous point, they don't like feeling useless. So as a result, they're going to want to be useful to themselves as well. So that's why they need to learn how to assess their own well-being. And by doing that, they need to say, okay, these are my limits, and I need to make sure that I'm not overworking myself. And that's why ISTJs are a lot more fond of taking naps than an ESTJ is, because that tertiary feeling is going to be saying, I need to satisfy my own needs a little bit here. I can't just do everything logical or nothing. Next up is chaos. This is generally a J thing, so pretty much any type that has the letter J in it is going to agree with me here, but ISTJs don't like disorder. They don't like things to be out of control. Now, most ISTJs, when they take a temperament test, get melancholy choleric. At least that's what I got. And I'm pretty sure most ISTJs would agree with me. But as a secondary choleric, we're not so much going to try to control every little thing. But when we're in, say, a work environment where everything is disorganized and people that are supposed to know what they're doing are being incompetent, the ISTJ is going to get into a real panic, especially if they're in a situation that they're not used to. ISTJs like everything to be controlled. They like to know what's coming up ahead. Because of their lack of intuition, they want someone else to tell them instead, like, okay, at 7 o'clock we want you to be here. 8 o'clock we want you to do this. ISTJs love rule books. When I go on one of my myriads of trips like that, I like to have the itinerary. And I love telling people the itinerary. Because if other people know the itinerary, then that means the conference is going smoothly not only for me, but for everyone. And even the people that have run the conferences I've been to have made comments like, you seem like the type of guy that really, really, really puts a lot of stock in the rules. And yes, I love rules. I love being told this is how things are supposed to be, because it makes things orderly and it makes it easier to make an informed decision when you know your parameters. Finally, this is going to make a lot of you laugh, and if you're drinking something, I highly recommend you swallow, because this might make you shoot milk out of your nose. Train tracks. Yes, believe it or not, I don't relate to this. I have personal reasons why I don't relate to it that I don't feel like telling you, but suffice to say that most ISTJs hate driving over train tracks. And it's probably because trains are really fast and they can hit you out of nowhere. I have been the victim of nearly being run over by a train before. You don't forget it anytime soon. And so as a result, a lot of ISTJs will go out of their way to make sure that they do not drive over a train track, which is kind of impossible now that I think about it. But yet, they're gonna look both ways maybe 4 times. They're gonna be secretly freaking out whenever they drive over it. And typically they're gonna be more comfortable going over if they know a train has already passed recently. Either that or they just don't like the sound of it. Because some ISTJs have very sensitive hearing. I mean, we're sensing types. Of course we're going to have well-developed senses. So there could be a myriad of reasons. With that, those are just 10. If you want to know any more, please let me know in the comments section, as well as what my next episode of ISTJ Info Dump should be. With that, this video is a wrap. Thank you for sticking around. Until the next time, keep the faith, stay epic, God bless, and keep on being a bucket, because we love info dumping. Bye!